What is going on, everybody? Thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of For the People podcast. Of course, I am your humble host, Niko House, and we are back, baby. The move is finally finished. I have like 95% of my studio finished. Bro, it was a month of some change. I'm tired, but we good. We're finally back in action. I'm glad to be back. And for our first live stream, since we've been back, I have a very special guest, the host of In Liberty and Health podcast, Kyle, my man's. How you doing, bro? Thanks for coming on.
Of course. Well, I'm honored to be here, and I'm doing very well. And it's always good to talk to you, Niko.
For sure, bro. I've been on your show a couple of times now. Always had a great time. It's always a great conversation. We're going to talk a lot about this Ukraine negotiation and everything that's been going on. But really quick, I wanted you to kind of give a brief discussion about the things that you talk about on your show, because I feel like you broach a lot of important topics, not just about politics, but really about life, health, habits, fitness, like working man topics that really I feel like most people can relate to a little bit more than politics at times.
Yeah, of course. So, yeah, I run the In Liberty and Health podcast, you said. And really, it kind of started because I was always talking to my wife about geopolitical stuff, health and fitness. And it really occurred to me that I should try to spread this message as much as I can, because I realized how important health was for me, because I used to be a lot heavier at one point. And when I lost about 70 pounds, I'm like, holy crap, like my whole world changed. I used to have, how do I want to say this in YouTube friendly terms, a certain kind of ideation that would revolve around offing yourself, essentially. And when I
Mm-hmm.
lost weight and just really got in a better shape, all the issues I was having in like my early 20s, from like, sore knees, sore back, and stuff like that. And then, like I said, also
Mm-hmm.
mental issues. Once I got in charge of my health, they all were just gone. I kind of used to chalk it up to, I was like 23, 22 at the time. Like, I'm an automotive technician by trade. You just kind of deal with it, right? You're always going to have some kind of pain. But then once I got beyond it, I'm like, oh, actually, it doesn't have to be this way. So that kind of led me down the road of just like, I need to learn everything I can about how to be like, really claim what I feel is people's birthright, and that's their health. So I got insanely
Yeah.
passionate about that. And then obviously geopolitical issues were just always very, very fascinating to me. And I really wanted to kind of broach this as like, I am a very right wing guy, right? I fix cars for a living. I've been with my wife for 6 years. I bought a house in the same, about a half hour away from where my parents live. I'm a fourth generation automotive technician. So, like, if there's any right wingers that feel like they can't take the right stand on foreign policy, I'm here to tell you that you can. I'm here to tell you that you could hate Israel and hate what they do and just want to care for your own country without being some kind of stupid hippie or something like that, and still be a right winger. I deadlift more than you, right? My wife's hotter than you. We have a prettier baby than you, and I fix cars better than all you guys. So trust me, you could feel the exact same way that I do. Ron Paul showed us back in 2008 that you could do it, and I'm here to show people again that you could do it. So really just everything about improving your health, and then also improving your knowledge about geopolitical issues. And I mainly focus on like China, Israel, Iran, Ukraine, because those are kind of the more modern day issues, specifically China, because we know that, with the pivot to Asia back in 2011, that's kind of the foreign policy establishment's main view. And I include Trump in that, which a lot of people think that he's some anti-war guy, but obviously today we're going to cover that a
Yeah.
little bit. But yeah, so like those are
Yeah.
the issues that mean the most to me. And I try to give people a different perspective on it than most that they would get from most like right-leaning people.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you say you're a libertarian, his podcast is in Liberty and Health, so obviously he's libertarian. And it's interesting that you come to the conclusion of being a libertarian, because a lot of libertarians, I feel like, I know this is going to sound, I won't say chato, but not, it's a Portuguese word, but basically they're like kind of using libertarianism as an excuse to be lazy. I don't know how I can explain that better. So, for example, like you realize, oh man, my health is a problem, but it's because my weight, which is a controllable issue,
Right.
is the real problem, and therefore I will take self accountability in that regard and fix that problem, especially because it's perfectly in my control. And then hopefully I will reap the rewards of that. A lot of libertarians that I grew up debating. So for whatever reason, and at least when I was in high school, the majority of kids were libertarians,
Mhm.
because they just see statistics and facts, quote facts or data, and they don't really match it with real life circumstances. and they never had to worry about anything. So it was very easy for them to preach this idea of self accountability, right? But they've actually never had to be self accountable. It's actually their parents who did well, and they are reaping the benefits of having a stable nuclear household. In your situation, it seems like your self accountability and your libertarianism kind of led to you actually bettering your life, getting a good job, even playing the balancing act that you're playing with your family and your podcast and your work and your band. And it translates directly into your view on foreign policy, politicians, and their lack of self accountability. And I always tell people, because for me, I don't really fall into a category. So, like, some people might call me a libertarian socialist, I guess. Some people say that. I took a test and that's what it said too. But like, I'm a big believer in self accountability as well. But like, you got to marry that self accountability to reality. So you got to practice it, but then you also have to be consciously aware when those in power are not practicing self accountability, especially when those in power are using self accountability for the excuse of the failures or the lack of success or the problems that we see in the United States.
Yeah, well, I think what you're preaching there is very, very well taken and at least well understood in my world because for me, it always seemed like in order to have some kind of like libertarian society or some kind of orderly society that anybody would really want to live in, you kind of need to have that accountability to yourself and your family. And also, like, you should want to create that same prosperity and leave that order to your future generations. That's kind of like always
Exactly.
been something that always seemed obvious to me. But then I started interacting with more and more libertarians, and it didn't seem as obvious to them as it did for me, which is just very odd because I'm like, yeah, of course you got to be like responsible. You got to pay your bills. You got to be a dutiful person. If you have a family, you got to be responsible for your family. And then if you have kids and grandkids, you want to leave them a world that's worth keeping and inhabiting. So like how you
Exactly.
can square these things. I think some people just look at libertarianism as a guise to just basically be a slob and do whatever they want when it's like, okay, well, if you want to keep that libertarian society in perpetuity, then once again, you need an orderly and a just people who have some kind of vision of like a world that they want, where you can
Mhm.
take care of other people, you take care of your neighbors, you take care of your kids. Like that's always been like incredibly obvious to me. But there are people that argue with me, oh yeah, I should be able to be your neighbor and turn music up as loud as possible, and you can't do anything about it because it's on my private property. I'm like, well, no. Like that,
Yeah.
the basic tenets of libertarianism is the private property rights and the non-aggression principle. Okay, well, it's technically not within the purview for me to leave my private property and go onto your private property to either forcefully or recommend that you turn down your music if we're in this metaphorical situation. But I think everybody would realize that like you wouldn't want to live in a world where people are just constantly doing that.
Yeah, using like kind of manipulating the tenants for their
Mhm.
own like means or purposes,
Yeah.
but ignoring the quote unquote the non-aggression side because that technically, it's not like you're physically fighting somebody, but like
Right.
that this is inconveniencing somebody. So at a certain point, it's like you're not being a libertarian, where you're just being a shitbag.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it's and we had this conversation on your show about self accountability and the perception of self accountability. People believe that self accountability is literally just about yourself. And we both had this conversation, in the leftist world, we would call it mutual aid. But basically, how if you as a libertarian, not you, but just generally speaking, if you as a libertarian want a better America, a better United States, a better society, because as a libertarian, it gets harder and harder for you to be self accountable, for you to be successful, for you to take care of your family if society is not functioning properly.
Mhm.
Right, and
Yeah.
we're getting it's every day it's getting worse, especially in the West. So the way that you ensure that society is functioning properly and you give people the tools to be self accountable is to not only be self accountable for what's happening in your home, but your community, because it's not just the community. If you're living there, it's your community. And if your community is equipped with the tools and the camaraderie and just really the network of people to help one another, then that community is able to help other communities and so on and so forth. And I mean, when we had a society like that at one point,
Yeah.
there groups within the United States that are able to succeed that way once they migrate from outside the US, because that's how they survived wherever they came from. And I see it in Brazil all the time. Brazil obviously isn't the wealthiest country in the world. However, they have a lot of community, and the ones that have been successful, the ones that I see that experience success, their families, for example, their mom or their dad lives like right in front of them. Their brothers
Mhm.
live like 2 streets down, or they all live like in the same complex. If
Yeah.
one person loses a job, it's okay, right? Because they get to their house was probably built by their dad or their grandfather.
Mhm.
That's so they don't have to worry about paying that particular bill, and they can actually go and search for a job instead of just settling for some minimum wage job. And like that translates in communities that were once considered the worst areas in the city to live are now some of the best areas in the city to live, right?
Mhm.
And I always say, like in the case of Brazil, that type of community is what makes Brazil's potential so dangerous to the West. And
Mhm.
the West is aware of that, which is why they go out of their way to infiltrate Brazil. And they are creating this kind of this two-party narrative to divide
Mhm.
people in Brazil, like they have done in the US, because if Brazilians actually did come together and everybody was self accountable, not only just to themselves, but to the community, then that's problematic for the US. The US has made it, they've individualized us. You got to leave to become successful 9 times out of 10. You got to go to New York to get that job. You got to go to California to get that job, Florida, even Tennessee and Texas now. And what happens when you lose that job or you eventually and inevitably come down on hard times? Where can you go?
Right. Yeah, I think it's a very, very important question that a lot of people should ask themselves. And I kind of realized this back in 2020 that I was very fortunate to have a really, really good network of people. So, you'd mentioned my band earlier, and I do play for a band called A Common Crown. And I think some people have situations in bands where it's just like, yeah, we see each other once a week, we play shows, and that's like it. But like, they're an extension of my family, essentially, right? So, like, they were some of the first people that knew that my wife was pregnant.
That's
We
dope.
go hang out on their boat all the time. We spend time drinking together. We go down to Florida all together. And in 2020, when I actually got laid off from my job because I didn't think I was going to get laid off, but because cars are always broken, so why would they ever lay a technician off? Surely enough, I did. And my dad has his own shop. My bass player has a shop, and even my neighbor, he works for an automotive shop. And pretty much all three of them were like, "Yeah, whatever you need. If you need somewhere to work for a little bit, we got you, no problem." So, and it's truly tragic to see that's not the situation for so many people. They don't have some kind of like familiar or family or friend network that they have to fall back on. But if you
Mhm.
have something like that, do everything you can to keep it. And if you don't have it, I think that's really something you should strive to build. You'd mentioned mutual aid earlier too, and I don't really hear libertarians talk a lot about this, but I think it's something important because, once again, community is very, very important. If you want to have any kind of orderly libertarian society where you don't have to worry about state intervention or an overarching government, then you want a tight family structure. You want good neighbors, good family, good friends, all that kind of stuff,
Exactly.
because then you don't need the government to come in and give people handouts. But generally, the libertarian
Exactly.
perspective is you don't want the government involved in anything because all they do is mess things up. And once again, in your community where the money best belongs and where it should best go.
Yep. And this is one of the principal tenets of the Black Panthers. They're like, we don't want y'all. We don't need your government. We don't need. I mean, if the local government wants to be involved, at least you have a way to keep track of them better than you do the federal government.
Right.
Once, like I said, as a leftist, I don't see how any leftist can believe in federal income tax because, like, bro, we preach all the time about how they just throwing our money out the window or throwing our money at wars or throwing our money back in their own pockets, right? Giving themselves raises during the pandemic. And we're out here literally having to fight for the money that we give to them for the safety net that they did not want to give us. They did not want to provide for us, right? So you're absolutely right. Like the less we have to rely on the government's job should only be to to create benefits, make life easier, right?
Mhm.
I don't believe that the federal government's job is to add more restrictions. I don't believe that. I believe they may, if you got at the state level, at the community level, if there are restrictions and you need to debate whether those restrictions or laws are legitimate, then we can go to courts. But even that, I prefer local courts rather than federal courts because federal courts, I don't elect you. You play
Mhm.
politics to get to the federal courts. District courts, they are responsible for the community that
Mhm.
they're presiding over. They have to get voted in. And if you keep making bad judgment calls, and eventually that and that happened in a couple of cities that I've lived in, where somebody realized, oh, that judge is trash, and they got up out of there. So the less we have to rely on federal government, the better we'll be. And that's and it's funny because you consider that a libertarian, you consider that a libertarian concept. I consider that a leftist concept. But at the end of the day, it's really just common sense. Like, it's common sense based off the context of history, and it's not really anything we can do to debate that. It's just reality. I want to go ahead and switch gears real quick. So as you know, Trump and Putin they negotiated, supposedly. That's what we've been told. I want to go ahead and check out a little bit of this article talking about how Europe is freaking out because it says Ukraine and allies left scrambling as Trump shifts towards Putin after Alaska summit. European leaders announced Sunday that they would join Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky in Washington as they seek to navigate America's new approach to end the war. Which it doesn't seem like anything new has actually happened, but that's what they're telling us. So Ukraine and its allies on Sunday were scrambling to respond to President Donald Trump's apparent shift towards Putin's hard-line position after their summit in Alaska. European leaders announced that they would join Ukraine's Zelensky in Washington on Monday as they seek to navigate America's new approach to ending the war after Trump signaled that he was reversing his insistence on a ceasefire and instead pursuing a permanent peace deal, seemingly aligning the United States with the Kremlin, which is kind of a weird way to frame that, but that's what they say. Trump on Sunday appeared to respond to reports that he may also be backing Putin's demands for Ukraine to give up its eastern Donbass region. And that doesn't belong to Ukraine. Can't really stress that enough, but they keep saying that. A further source of alarm among Kiev and its European backers. If I got Russia to give up Moscow as part of the deal, the fake news and their partner and the radical left Democrats would say I made a terrible mistake and very bad deal. He posted on Truth Social. So what it looks like to me is kind of Putin just got everything. It looks like he's going to get everything he wanted. Like the reason he started this war was partially because of Donbass, partially because of Crimea, the aggression Ukraine has been engaging in those regions really for almost 10 years, partially because of this NATO situation. But even the ceasefire, he's made it kind of clear he was not like, I don't want a ceasefire. I want to end the war. Right. And so what do you make of this summit? Why did it happen? I'm confused as to why it happened. Like, because I was under the impression that Zelensky was supposed to get something in return, and it looks like it's just going to be Putin getting whatever he wants anyway.
Well, this is the usual Trump, and I know I sent a video, which I think we'll probably cover a little bit later, of Steve Witkoff saying, discussing on the news about some kind of security guarantees. So over the weekend, Trump actually said that he might give Ukraine security guarantees, but then he's saying that he's going to let Russia have Donbass regions and whatever the other regions that he's kind of looking for here. So as usual, he takes every side of every issue, so that way he always comes out on top. And then the people say it's 4D chess, or, this is all part of the plan. Initially, there were so many people that said he was going to end the war as president-elect, and I think you and I talked about this when you were on my show the other day, but like that was completely obvious to me that wasn't going to happen, because what's he going to do? Just when his explicit policy was, I'm going to give Ukraine more weapons than they've ever gotten, and tell Putin that basically if you don't listen, then they're getting all this. So to me, it was always like, oh, you're just going to try Joe Biden's policy, which, as we can see for the last almost 3 years now, didn't work. So if Trump does decide to go for the and there's reports on Reuters about this, but if he decides to go for the security guarantees in Ukraine, then why would Putin agree to a peace deal if the U.S. is going to just continue to fund the fund the conflict? And one of the other explicit goals of Trump throughout his campaign was to up NATO spending, which everybody says, oh, he's anti-war, he wants to bring an end to the war in Ukraine. Okay, well, why are we trying to goose military spending if we're trying to bring war to an end? I
Mhm.
think this kind of goes to the larger idea that what the US wants, and Trump is playing a role in this, is that they want to basically hand off these, different theaters. They want to hand off the struggle with Russia to Ukraine and the EU. They want to hand Iran off to Israel, even though we know that wouldn't work. It wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Iran wouldn't. It just wouldn't work. And then they want to focus on China, but clearly, they don't have the weapons, they don't have the supplies. The EU's broke because of the whole SOFOR LIBOR split. So they're starved for money. I don't think it's really going to work out in Ukraine's favor unless Zelensky's willing to step down and say that, like, oh, I'm going to just cede all this territory. And there was a video that just came out earlier today where he said, I think he said part of like the Constitution of Ukraine doesn't allow them to cede territory. So, and I think a lot of the people in Zelensky's military and his cabinet don't want him to give anything up. So I think it's still going to go on. I think this is largely just an optic thing. And I'm sure you probably saw some of the videos and pictures of Putin where they're harassing him, saying, "Oh, you're killing all these people," and he's just kind of giving the side eye, looking at them
Oh,
all
man.
funny.
You see that video where he, like the media is like screaming his name, and he just like
Yeah.
like smirking at him, like, what the hell's wrong with you?
Yeah. He's like, man, you guys deal with this shit all the time. But yeah, basically,
Yeah,
I think
bro.
it was an optics victory for everybody, really, because Putin kind of came in and puffed his chest up. I think he talked for it was like 70% of the time of the meeting of like the whole 2.5 hours. I think he talked like 2 hours, I think I heard.
Mhm.
And Trump got a little bit out. So, of course, he's going to say, oh, this went excellent. Some people in the Kremlin said it went well. But if they're saying it went well, then I think they're probably under the impression that they're going to get what they want. But this also depends if Trump's going to agree to what they want and if he's going to agree with or if he's going to agree with Zelensky and say like, oh no, we're going to continue to send you weapons and aid, because he did use the same exact methods that Biden did to send in weapons, the Presidential Drawdown Authority, and sent $330 million worth of weapons in. So
Mhm.
it's anybody's guess as to what happens. The Russians are also really, really smart about playing media. And as you and I discussed before, Putin is no dummy. I mean, he knows he's a statesman. He's very, very
Yeah.
smart. So he knows how to play the optics well. So I think we just kind of have to wait and see. But if I had to put my money anywhere, I think the conflict's going to continue.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to continue for a little bit longer. I don't think so. In my opinion, I felt like from the beginning there was nothing that could have happened in this summit that would have resulted in the end of the war. I don't
Right.
believe that there was anything that was going to change Putin's demands.
Mhm.
Putin made it clear from the beginning, like, I'm not doing this whole ceasefire bullshit, especially because the EU, and very specifically Starmer, said, "Yeah, we're just going to use the ceasefire to give Ukraine more weapons."
Mhm.
And that at that point, why? Because that's what he said. He said, "Oh, we can't agree to a ceasefire unless we give them some more weapons to ensure that Russia will honor the ceasefire." It's like, so you're basically just saying that you want a ceasefire only to rearm Ukraine and for them to
Right.
continue the war. Like, why would Putin agree to that? And
Mhm.
also, if your goal really is to end the war and achieve peace, why not just reach a deal right then and there?
Right.
Because obviously, Starmer, Ukraine, or, well, not necessarily Ukraine, but Starmer, the EU, NATO, they want to keep Russia occupied in this war against Ukraine for as long as humanly possible, without, of course, ever actually making Ukraine part of NATO. But there
Mhm.
was nothing that this, in my opinion, was Russia kind of flexing and going, because obviously they're like, if you want to take a meeting, we can take a meeting. That's cool, right?
Mhm.
Like, nothing's going to change. But because in my opinion, the only way you could stop the two warring parties from going to war with each other is for the two warring parties to be in the same goddamn room. Like,
Right.
I don't care what anybody says. Nothing will stop until Putin and Zelensky are in the same room. And Zelensky is avoiding that at all costs because he knows he doesn't have any negotiating room. They're
Mhm.
losing the war. The only money the only reason they can sustain what they are sustaining is because of the West. But it's Putin came to this summit just to remind Trump, hey, so here's what's gonna happen. We're gonna take Donbass
Mhm.
because y'all, like, Ukraine is bombing and killing them. Like, y'all forgot about that, and I let it slide for a long time.
Mhm.
And because y'all crossed that red line of NATO, we're gonna solve all of the problems at once.
Mhm.
Crimea voted to become a part of Russia. So yeah,
Right.
we're gonna take that too. So just to make that clear, that's a non-negotiable. Also, yeah, they're still not gonna be allowed to be a part of NATO. Not that you even have to say that, because NATO doesn't even want Ukraine to be a part of NATO at this point. And that whole ceasefire shit, yeah, that's out the window. If you don't want peace, period, then we're just gonna keep beating y'all ass. Like, I don't know what the and okay, so you have anything else to say? Well, no, I think that sounds good. I think I'm gonna take that back to the people, and we're gonna discuss this. Like, bro, because what are you gonna do? There's nothing. What is the United States gonna do? They're gonna threaten sanctions against Russia
All right.
again.
They already have 36,000 sanctions on them.
And how's that working out? They're literally better off. Their economy is better off than it's ever been. People, y'all don't. Marco Rubio tried to say he was like trying to talk about how the sanction, the U.S. being tough on Russia. So we put sanctions on Russia. You know that when they came to Alaska to refill their jets, they had to pay in cash. That's how much damage these sanctions are doing. I'm like, that's what your argument. But they had the cash though, right? Like,
Yeah.
because they can't use our banking system, so they couldn't swipe their credit cards. What the fuck? What? I'm like, I did an interview. I'm like, wow, that's you're not making a real strong argument there, my guy. Let's check out this video really quick about the security guarantees, because that is something I don't believe Putin is going to let slide. Actually,
No. Well, and you know what? You and I discussed this a little bit too. During that whole beatdown in the White House, where everybody kept saying that, Trump and Vance really beat down Zelensky and really put him in his place. Yeah, it felt good. Yeah, it was funny to watch, but like the people ignored the first 45 to 50 minutes of that, where Trump was essentially saying, yes, we'll give them security guarantees. Yes, they need more weapons. That, they're having a real tough time. Trump was the one that called this a genocide when it first started. I don't think people remember that. It was a certain news little segment where he was on the phone. Yeah, he called it a genocide. So it's just like
he just said it quietly. He didn't put it on True Social, so nobody saw it.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, how, like, if you were Putin, why would you accept the West after they already armed Ukraine to the teeth? Why would you accept a peace deal where, you have this mineral deal where they get all the minerals that are in the Russian occupied parts of Ukraine, and then also security guarantees, which is kind of like the main reason why you didn't want Ukraine as part of NATO, because you didn't want NATO troops on your border. Like, I think this is a pretty simple ask. What, the Ron Paul saying essentially always is like, we would never accept boots on the ground from China and Mexico. Reasonably
Never.
So. No one would accept that.
No.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
Beijing
bro.
in a minute.
Like, it's like if we saw, for example, China conducting military exercises, just like in conjunction, not even like as a threat to the U.S. or anything. Like, hey man, we're partners, allies with Mexico. Like, it makes sense for us to conduct joint military exercises with them, because that's what allies do. I don't give a shit how reasonable it sounds. The U.S. would lose their shit. Yeah. So you're declaring war is what you're saying? No, we're just literally doing military. Y'all do this all the time in our water.
Yeah, exactly. Right. They sail through the Strait of Taiwan to the tune of like once, maybe twice a month, and then do military drills where they have nuclear submarines in Australia, right off the coast of North Korea, and they just take it in stride. But once again, we're doing that as a threat. Like, we're not, you know what I'm saying? It's not like we're exercising. We call it exercising, but really we're constantly threatening them and reminding them, hey, we can let these ring anytime we want. That's like in the case, it's like if China genuinely said, hey, like, we're just doing military exercises with our allies. Especially in China's case, because they don't ever engage in war. Like, they don't engage in open conflict. So the exercises for them are actually kind of more important than for the U.S. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, we're gonna blow y'all up. That's a declaration of war. We want a war where everybody, like, it would. That's because the U.S. is like mentally unstable and constantly projects. Exactly.
So let's check out this video real quick.
Chief.
So let's talk about the security guarantees, because you mentioned those. What does that mean in practicality? What is the U.S. willing to commit to that effort to give Ukraine the assurances it needs to come to the table?
It means that the United States is potentially prepared to be able to give Article 5 security guarantees, but not from NATO, directly from the United States and other European countries. That is big. I mean, really big.
Does it mean boots on the ground? What does it mean, but logistically?
I think part of the discussion that we're going to have on Monday throughout the day, because there's going to be breakout sessions there, is exactly the specifics of what the Ukrainians feel that they need. Because remember, as mediators, we were at this summit to advance the Ukrainian position, and we did that. And we did it successfully. Now it's for us to drill down on the granular details of exactly what the Ukrainians need to give them a sense of security in the future. And by the way, what the Europeans need as well. And we were fully committed to be there for that purpose.
So there was so much.
Oh. You know, it's so funny to me because, so many people keep telling me, and this is like what I have to deal with being in like the right wing libertarian sphere. There are a lot of like Trump faithful people, and not for entirely bad reasons. I get it. Trump's funny. He says some of the right stuff. You know, he definitely was, in my opinion, a better choice than Kamala Harris. But like, we're being told that he's beaten down the EU and that, you know, their main enemy is like Europe, from the perspective of a lot of like more dissident right, pro-Trump people who kind of voted for him in this vein, because they look at like Jerome Powell and the way that he's kind of changed the way that the US banking system works in a certain respect. But then you have Steve Witkoff, who Tucker Carlson says has the hand of God on his shoulder, who, you know, at first I was like, you know what? It's good that he's like going around negotiating, but every single time they always come up empty-handed. Every single time. Gaza, they got a ceasefire for a brief moment, and then what happens? Every single time,
just ceasefire.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Hamas is unreasonable. Every single time they go to negotiations, they always flip-flop and say that, oh no, this went terrible. So at a certain point, we've had about 7 months of Steve Witkoff going back and forth negotiating with everybody, and then it always ends up just every other country is in a worse position, and then we end up with greater hostilities. Like what happened with Iran? We basically sensed them or negotiated them into a sense of complacency where they thought like, oh, things are good, and then we bombed the shit out of them for what?
For a lot.
And yeah, exactly. Now all people are a lot of these people that I'm referring to that are very pro-Trump are saying like, oh, this basically took away Israel's casus belli, like they don't have a reason to fight with Iran anymore. But that's not true, for one, because they still have a nuclear program. They said they're going to continue to enrich. So, and then
now they're going to enrich more. Actually, they were very clear
exactly.
about it. Like, y'all just bombed the shit out of us. Like, why would we not?
Both Witkoff and Trump said they can't enrich. So, like this 12-day war that we're being told it's not over. It's not a 12-day war. Like this is still going to continue in perpetuity. So it's basically like,
in my opinion, it only ended because Israel had like they were buck naked. Like they don't have any more weapon. They needed to re-up basically because they use up all their ammunition trying to defend themselves with the Iron Dome. People forget like this ain't fucking Call of Duty, bro. You don't just restart the game and then you just got your Iron Dome is just no. Like the U.S. sends them that ammo. There's a whole process to approve the ammunition for that, for the Iron Dome, and the way that Iran was busting their ass in Tel Aviv, like in civilian locations. Well, really it was attacking military targets, and it turns out that those targets were in civilian locations, which nobody was aware of. But like that was what it was. Like so, I feel like the U.S. attacked, and then they kind of gave cover to make it seem like, okay, now it's over because the U.S. attacked these nuclear facilities and destroyed them. But really, that's not what happened. Like, I wouldn't even be surprised if they're back up and running. They said it would only be a couple of months. Mm-hmm. So with this, first of all, this man said we engage in these negotiations basically to ensure that Ukraine comes out on top. Bro, let me be clear. I don't think you understand how negotiations are supposed to work, or summits, or like that's if that is your true goal, which we all know it is. That's not what you say. You don't say that part out loud. What you say is our goal is to achieve peace, and we're willing to make concessions to do that. We're also we want to ensure the interests of our allies, but also we understand that it's important that Putin ensures Russia's best interest. He's going to look out for Russia's best interests as well. And we understand that. We're going to do our best to reach a middle ground so that we can finally end this war. That's what you say. You don't come out and be like, yeah, man, we're going to do whatever the hell we got to make sure that Ukraine comes out on top. Because then that means Putin logically, I'm going to do whatever the hell I have to make sure Russia comes out on top. Then you dumbass, like we are winning already. So like, and when you talk about security guarantees, and she's like, well, boots on the ground, is that a possibility? Or when she says, or when he says, yeah, man, that's going to include not NATO directly, but just U.S., Western Europe, basically all the NATO countries. It's just not going to be under the NATO banner. It's just going to be all the countries that pay for NATO. In fact, I would make an argument, dare I say, that having Western European nations military and the U.S. military put boots on the ground is arguably worse than actually having NATO do it. It's arguably worse because effectively, given that Ukraine is in a war with Russia, you are declaring war against Russia as an individual nation now.
Right.
Which is like, and it's every individual nation is making a choice on its own rather than under the NATO banner. Because under the NATO banner, there's obviously there's more checks, more balances, even though NATO is, it's a fucking shit show, but it would at least give you more cover. You can say, well, no, this isn't a U.S. troop, this is a NATO troop. Because they've been kind of hiding behind NATO in various ways while funding Ukraine and putting some boots on the ground, some infrastructure on the ground as it is. But if you just say, no, we're not going to fund it through NATO, we're going to send our own troops. What? Because what we literally did not want to. The reason, like, it's like for basically what I'm trying to say is when Putin says we don't want NATO to expand, what he's really saying is we don't want any of y'all coming near our nation, coming near Russia.
Yeah.
And it's like they're taking it literal, like, well, no, we're not going to do it under NATO, but we're going to send our own troops. It's like, no, I don't think you understand what the fuck I meant when I said I don't want NATO near us. I mean, I don't want y'all near us and y'all just hide behind this NATO thing. I don't want to have to say England, US, France, whatever, every single time I'm explaining why I don't want NATO on our border. But like, it's like they're playing this little game of rhetoric. Like, no, we're not going to put NATO there, but we're just going to put all of our own troops. That's why this war is not going to end. There is no security guarantee that you can offer that Putin will accept, because the problem is that the security guarantee that you're offering is the one rule that Putin said that you need to follow, and you broke, which is helping Ukraine in whatever capacity engage as a NATO proxy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think part of the reason why this is still kind of going on like this is because Putin, he'll sit for meetings, he'll talk to whoever, he'll do whatever, but he's still going to do what he wants to do, because at this point it's like, okay, well, the West is growing less and less relevant. They're going to have their sphere of influence over in their part of the world, but like, we don't want them here. But even regardless of what they say, we're still going to do what we want to do, because what are they going to do? Send troops over here? I mean, I don't think Trump would do that, but I've been proven wrong before. But like, basically his rules are still the same, so he'll gladly sit through anything. But it's basically like, whenever you guys are ready to settle it, we'll settle it. But if not, I'm just going to keep doing me. And I think China's the same way. I think they're kind of looking at it like, okay, well, they can sell weapons to Taiwan, but like, that is ours if we want it, right?
Even
like
bro, even think about it like this. Like, out of all the places they could have met, they met in Alaska. Mm-hmm. That's like you were trying to make it as convenient as humanly possible for Putin, right? It's like Putin basically said, like, nah, bro, like, if we're going to meet somewhere, we're going to meet somewhere close. And then Trump was like, yeah, we can do that, man. Because that's like, bro, I mean, Alaska is damn near part of Russia, you would think, the way it's close. Like, for people that don't understand, I know, like, on the map, sometimes it looks a little bit farther than it is. Nah, bro, like, you can hop in the motherfucking boat and sail over to Alaska. Like, it's that close. And that is actually probably the most convenient spot for Russia to meet Trump. Like, even that in and of itself is a flex. I was talking to Dr. Roman Leon the other day, and we were talking about the fact that Putin, when he's giving interviews, even if he's giving interviews to with American journalists, like when he did with Tucker, you notice that he speaks only Russian and he makes them translate. So that leads a lot of people to believe that he doesn't speak English. No, Vladimir Putin is actually fluent in English. He is actually actively choosing not to use the language of the oppressor and the aggressor, because it's a flex. He's like, yeah, I literally can speak your language. You can't speak mine. You have to have a translator. I don't. I do this because I can, I want to, and I'm proving a point. Like, y'all think that y'all are the exception. And it's like, but if you, and it's not just with Russia, really most European countries, most of those people can speak more than one language. It's the US where the majority of people, if they're not from the other country, they can't speak more than one language because our education system is a failure and we're a bunch of uncultured swines. So, like, well, not me, but like the majority of the country is, unfortunately. So even that in of itself is a flex. Like Putin stays playing these 4D chess moves, and like I really feel like people don't appreciate how smooth this dude is. Like, he's just a smooth ass operator. Cause like you got him to meet in Alaska. Since when do we do meetings in Alaska, Kyle?
Yeah, never.
I ain't never heard of that shit before. That's like a he decided like, yeah, because he did. I'm sure he didn't want to meet in another European nation because outside of the convenience or lack thereof, there is a legitimate risk to his life.
Yeah.
I mean, Ukrainians out here committing open terrorist attacks. Israel is Israel.
Yeah.
Like, to make sure, and if something happened in the US, that's a whole different ballgame. It's like, he's protecting himself. He's like, y'all not gonna do shit if I'm in the US. Right.
Well, the other thing that I think there is to think about here is that, like, one thing I've kind of noticed that it's usually the people underneath the leader's cabinet that are usually more like aggressive and hardliner than like Putin or Xi. The people underneath them are probably way, way, way more hostile to the US, and they kind of have to placate their people. But like you said, smooth operator, they know what they're doing. So they'll play it however they have to play it. But I think the only other place they really probably would have met would have been somewhere in the Middle East. But like, you're going to go meet in Saudi? That would probably be one of the only places, because you're going to meet in Iran. Well, they're not too happy with the US right now. If you go in Israel, well, there's, definitely historical beef between some parts of Israel and Russia. So
they got really I wouldn't trust Israel. I would be more likely to meet Israel if I was an enemy of Israel than an ally. We know how they treat their allies. They're the only ones who treat their allies worse than the US treats theirs. So, right. But like, if you do meet in another area and Israel and the US somehow work together with Ukraine to try to assassinate you guys, they have plausible deniability. In the US, it's a different story. It would be your responsibility, right? No one would, like, it doesn't matter what you think it is, like, or what we might. No, there's going to be an automatic assumption by the court of public opinion that the US was directly responsible, even if it wasn't Trump. But because we know, like, the CIA, you don't work for Trump. They work for the CIA, right? Israel, they work for themselves. The Mossad works for themselves. In Ukraine, in some capacity, I would make an argument that they are doing a lot of the work that the CIA, Mossad, and by way of NATO want. So, like, making sure that the meeting was held, given how important this meeting was, making sure that the meeting was held in an area where the U.S. would be held accountable if something happened to any of the leaders was genius. Like, it was a power move, because this man is not an idiot. Like, he knows, he's like, yeah, this is an extremely important meeting. He knows that Trump needs a distraction because, once again, Epstein files, Epstein client list, still ain't got it, right?
Yeah.
What would be the best distraction? I'm serious, bro. Like, what would be the best distraction? Oh shit, Putin's dead. Oh shit, a general got knocked off, like, on the way to the, like, there's so many things that could happen en route to another location, just like what happened with Iran's leader, right? Out of nowhere. So imagine how big of a distraction that could have been if they were to meet somewhere else. Things like that, Putin's always pondering and planning ahead for. And you just wish that. Sometimes I'm like, bro, why can't Putin be our president? Why can't he be the president? Like, you ever think that sometimes? Like, because it's like, that's what, when we were kids, you thought that our presidents were like that. Like you got to be like 5 steps ahead of everybody, because that's what we were taught. Yeah, man, all the history books and everything, like, that's what they make you think U.S. presidents were like. But in reality, that's just like Putin and a few leaders, and the leaders that they assassinated around the world throughout history. And our presidents, a bunch of fucking dodo birds.
We elected Joe Biden to run the country for 4 years, and they were going to try to put in Kamala Harris. Like, those are the leaders.
Even VP, I think, he plagiarized multiple times and, like, was a failure. Like, he tried to run for office multiple times and was unpopular. And they were like, yeah, man, but let's make him VP in case Obama gets assassinated, and then he would be in charge. Like, but y'all just decided? Didn't we already decide that he's trash? Then we just made that decision.
Yeah, we already rejected him once. So
Yeah,
please.
But Kamala didn't even make it to the primary.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, man. So let's make her the president for temporarily or active. Like, well, no, why make her the VP? When you know that we knew, hell, at the time, we didn't know how long Joe Biden was gonna make it. Damn the dementia, that boy was looking like he was the crypt keeper out there. Like we didn't know, and she could have been president after not even making it to the damn primary. It's like I said, every stereotype that we thought our presidents would fall into as far as their ability to navigate politics, both domestic and international. No, it doesn't apply to them at all. And really it applies to Putin. And then you begin to realize, like, it's kind of like real life interactions, like real life social interactions, how the idiot always has a problem with the smartest person in the group. Like, because the smartest person in the group knows that they're an idiot, even if they don't say anything, they just kind of like let it slide. Like, yeah, bro, you full of shit. I ain't gonna say nothing, but you full of shit. Right?
Yeah. Oh,
So
listen, I deal with this stuff. It's part of the reason why sometimes I feel like I just need to be off Twitter for a little bit, because I only got back on in 2021. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier in the show, I've studied nutrition relentlessly. And when I see people sound off, especially with the whole Make America Healthy Again thing, just when people talk about seed oils, I understand why they're terrified of it, but they'll start sounding off about it. And I'm like, okay, well, do you have any data to back that up? Like, have you ever read a study on it? Well, no. All right, please, just I'm going to give you tons of information and do with it what you will. But half the time, first of all, I deadlift more than you, I bench more than you, I squat more than you, and I eat this stuff not religiously. It's really not a huge part of my diet, but I know they're fine. I've read the studies on it. Most of these other people just haven't. I feel like it's kind of
what gotta read studies, bro. It's so important. It's so important to read studies, because people will hear something on Twitter or read even a news article about it, right? Or listen to an expert, and I'm like, and even the experts, they be slick, right? Because what they'll do is they'll mention the study, and they know that 98% of those people who are listening to that expert don't read the study that's mentioned, and the study that's mentioned directly contradicts what the expert is saying.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Nobody ever looks at this kind of stuff. When I talk to people about diet pop too, people lose their minds at diet soda, for people who don't say that or aren't from a certain part of the US. When people start digging on aspartame, saying, oh my God, this is going to give you cancer. It makes me laugh, because okay, so if you believe that aspartame is going to give you cancer, that's only because the World Health Organization, which we already shouldn't trust, because remember 2020 and what they told us in 2020, they were all full of shit about that. But anyways, they put aloe vera, the outside air, as potential carcinogens as well, in the same category as aspartame. So if you believe aloe vera and literally walking outside your door is a carcinogen, then you can believe aspartame is a carcinogen. But if you don't believe those other two are carcinogens, then aspartame's fine. So, and the doses the dose that they use to find that aspartame is potentially cancer inducing or carcinogenic, they would pump mice full of the equivalent if you or I to drink about 15 cans of diet pop a day. So, and for years at a time,
bro, drinking 15 cans of anything a day is going to be a problem. Damn, even water you can drink too much of. People don't forget. Exactly. My aunt-in-law, if you will, the doctor told her the other day, you have to stop drinking Coca-Cola and coffee. I was like, huh? Why coffee and Coca-Cola? They're like, oh, because it's basically we're insinuating that they're the same and causing her health problems. I was like, well, no, Coca-Cola I can see, but why coffee? Because I asked her, because in her case she drinks coffee black. So I'm like, yeah, that's not causing your problem. I can guarantee. Maybe in conjunction with if you're drinking Coca-Cola coffee, back, that's a problem. But just caffeine in and of itself is not bad for you. And she's like, well, no, we're told it's addictive. And I was like, no, it can be, I guess. It has addictive qualities. And for example, if you drink it regularly and you don't drink it for a day, you could have a headache. But if I work out for 2-3 weeks straight and then I don't work out for 2 days, my body feels like shit because I didn't work out. You know what I'm saying? My grandfather drank coffee like fucking water. It didn't make any sense to me when I was growing. I'm like, I thought coffee was bad for you, or like it was like a problem, because that's what we're taught in school at a young age, right? They tell you to stay away from caffeine. And my grandfather lived and worked until he was 87, and he only passed away actually because he took the vax. He actually died, unfortunately, like within 36 hours of taking Moderna.
Oh.
Yeah, like that was what ultimately did him in. My grandfather bowled until like literally weeks until, well, really until the pandemic started, because they shut down the bowling alleys. So he was like in his 80s bowling all the time.
Yeah.
Like 2-3 times a week, bro. My grandfather worked in construction until like 60 or 70, then went to security because he was like, I'm not about to sit around the house. Like he could have retired and just stopped, but he was bored. So he's like, I'm like, and sure enough, every time I went to go visit, bro, coffee in the morning, coffee for lunch, coffee during the day. I'm like, were you surviving on coffee? And he only had a heart problem, and that was really because of his diet. Not, they were like, I'm like, is it the coffee? My grandma was like, no, they said yes, he's eating too much salt, basically, was the problem. So I'm like, that shit, I had to go back and research everything I knew about caffeine, because I'm like, I thought that coffee would be causing a problem. And my grandma, she never drank coffee because she was like kind of paranoid about the like, oh man, like, I'm worried that we're gonna both have. No, my grandma unfortunately died sooner than my grandfather and had more health problems than my grandfather did, but she was 7 or 8 years younger than my grandfather. And they started earlier. And so I had to, like I said, completely and it had a lot to do with the pandemic as well. Like a lot of people, I had to like completely reshape how I thought about the things that we were taught as kids. And when you actually do the research, like things like milk, right, or breakfast being the most important meal of the day, like things like that, like you realize that we're kind of like lied to about fucking everything. And there are studies out there to prove it. And they just like, those studies never make it into the textbooks for some reason. But like, our kids, at least in the US, are taught certain things that simply is not true. And it's bizarre how people are just forced, not only have to, but they're forced to accept it. And it's really important for that. I think it's really important that people I don't care if your doctor tells you something, you need to go back and confirm it. You don't have to be a doctor to just do basic levels of research on basic studies. You might not understand every single word, but most people have the reading comprehension to at least, you can even look up what you don't understand. YouTube is a motherfucker. Boy, I'll tell you, you can find a lot of stuff on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
So it's just very interesting that you brought that up. Like, yeah, man, like some stuff they'll tell you, and you can't just accept anything in this day and age at face value. Between the vaccine and AI, like I don't trust shit. So
no, honestly, yeah, you're completely right. And it really took me a long time to kind of get around to doing this, because I've been working out consistently for probably about 15 years or so. And it wasn't until about 5 or 6 years ago that I'm like, oh yeah, what I put into my body actually like matters. Like, oh, who would have thought that?
Bro, no, it's true. It's so true.
Yeah, and
even when you're working out.
They really demonize protein, which in my opinion is the most important macronutrient. And like the minimum recommendation for protein right now is just enough to basically keep you from wasting away, right? So if you actually want to prosper, then you actually have to crank the protein up quite a bit. So like for your average person, if you're obese, then you want to go for like 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight. If you're somewhat in shape, then 1 gram per pound is generally good enough. But like you would never hear that from, your school or your average doctor. But like just changing that in your diet alone, that's going to fix so much for you, because you're going to be more satiated. You're going to be able to build more muscle. You're going to feel better. So like those 3 things alone are, more than enough reason to start
eating recover. Like
the recovery
classes, like not even from working out, just like your day, like everything you do throughout the day. As you get older, you realize, like for example, you got to figure this out. I'm sure you probably already have. Where I be carrying my damn baby around. Next thing I know, I'm about to get in bed. Like, damn, why do I feel like I just got done squatting 15 pounds for 3 hours straight? And I realized I was just walking around my baby, and I literally was just walking around carrying him for an hour and a half, not thinking about it. But now my legs are sore, my back is sore, my arm is sore. and I'm like, oh shit, like I walked 15,000 steps today. When did I do that?
I'm holding my little girl normally in like one arm right now because she's still small enough, thankfully. And usually, like after like a half hour, I'm like, my arm's getting fucking tired.
Yeah, like what am I doing?
I'm starting to feel a little funky.
I forgot. There's a baby in my hand. Like things like that you don't think about, but like your body still needs to recover from that. There are days where I would carry my baby and like the next day I'm sore still. I'm like, damn, bro, like this is actually exhausting. I can actually see how some parents fall off from the gym after they, for the first few months, because being a parent is physically exhausting. Like you're doing things that you might be grocery shopping more. You're on your feet more. You're not getting as much rest as you consistent rest as you would in the past. So like your body isn't recovering to this in the same degree that it would have been recovering if you were able to get your 8 hours. Like, because you're gonna wake up, whether your mom or dad. Like you're gonna wake up because you gotta go feed them, or you're gonna wake up because your wife woke up because she gotta go feed them. Like it's just how it is. And all that stuff you need to I take CMOS consistently, but also I had to start taking other vitamins. Like I take vitamin D. I should have been taking it before anyway, but I was actually kind of procrastinating because I'm like, I gotta engage in this damn Brazilian system and speak Portuguese and explain my situation, which at the time was annoying. So they're like, but it was such a major change because I was like, damn. It was already kind of a problem when I wasn't taking it how I was supposed to. And now that I'm not getting the rest I need, I'm not recovering when I work out. It takes 2 or 3 days for me to recover from that like arm workout or that leg workout instead of just a day and some change. Like, nah, I got to adjust. Protein helps immensely with the recovery process. Your body needs protein. I don't understand how people don't get. And then I don't know if you're aware of this. You should do some more research into this. Your blood type can affect how much protein you need. I learned that because I was trying to figure out if there was a link between cancer and blood type, and specific types of cancer and blood type. So being O negative, for example, I learned that my stomach actually tends to be more acidic. I have more acid in my stomach because I'm O negative. I'm like, that's weird, because I've always explained to people like everybody can't be vegan. Like and people looked at me like I'm fucking crazy. I'm like, no, like I don't understand. Since when is it weird to accept the reality that there's an exception to every rule? And because I tried doing this thing where I was like eating vegan maybe 4 or 5 times a week, and I always even though I felt good at times, my stomach would start acting up. And I'm like, why the hell am my stomach hurting? What? And since when did I get acid? Like I've never had acid reflux. And then I started doing research and found out, oh shit, O negative, you have to eat more meat, because if that acid is not occupied, it has nowhere to go, and it can actually start burning your stomach lining.
Yeah, so when it comes to like a vegan diet, there's different ways I kind of try to look at nutrition. So like a vegan diet, if you're, let's say, an overweight person, then like plant proteins can actually be very useful because you get a lot of volume and not as many calories, right?
Yeah.
But the only problem is you have to eat a lot of plant protein, like so much that it may actually be uncomfortable for you in order to get a sufficient amount of protein. So like we know that muscle protein synthesis triggers after I think it's about 3 grams of leucine, which is the main amino acid that's found in like animal proteins. That's why they're so good for building muscle. So because they have that basically like their amino acid profile works very, very well with our biology. As far as plant proteins go, they don't work quite as well because they're low in leucine. They may be higher in other ones, but also like, some of the proteins are bound up in like the fibers and stuff like that, which isn't inherently a bad thing. But if you're trying to build as much muscle as possible, to be a vegan, you really have to plan your stuff out. You're going to have to use lots of protein powders.
It's a lot of effort. Yeah.
Your stomach's going to feel like shit because you're eating, probably 50 grams of fiber a day, where, in my opinion, just easier to get some like lean animal proteins, get a sirloin steak, get some pork, chicken, fish is really, really good for you as well.
Bro, that's another thing I didn't know. I remember one time, so I was in college, I was on this really big steak kick. Oh, because I had like really had recently just discovered that I liked steak. When I was a kid, I did not like meat like that. I don't ask me why. I just had an aversion. I just did not like it. My mom used to, I think it was a texture for some reason. I don't know why. I just did not like it. But it also probably has something to do with the fact that, you know, as a kid, we were poor. So it wasn't like we were eating the best quality meat. So the
Right.
texture probably threw me off. So as I got older and I had my first medium rare steak, I was like, oh my God, motherfucker, I love steak. Why did it take me so long to figure this out? And I was under the impression, I'm like, damn, bro, this is going to be bad because I'm like going to gain weight. And all of a sudden, bro, I'm like, my abs were like more ripped than they had ever been. And I was confused. And so I'm like, one day across my timeline, I'm like, find this article, how eating certain cuts of steak can actually improve your abs. I was like, what? And they were basically explaining like the protein and how your recovery process is affected by it, et cetera. So I'm like, bro, why do I feel like every day I'm finding out that I was lied to for the majority of my life? Like every day I feel I'm finding out something new, things that I thought were, and it really comes down to at times, sometimes you learn something new just from listening to your body, right?
Mhm.
Because I did make the connection, like, okay, for whatever reason, after eating these steaks 4 times a week, because it was in college and I had a meal card. So like it had steak, I was eating that shit. And I went to UNC, so the food was really good. So, and you really like have to listen to your body. And then like once you listen to your body and it's like you make that loose connection, then you can do a deep dive into figuring out if there is some validity to what you're, you know, to your hypothesis. If there's ways you can even enhance it or use it to your advantage, what you figured out about your body. Things like that, bro, you really have to be tuned in to your body and then respond to that, and instead of just blindly believing studies from doctors who have never touched a fucking weight, nor have they sat on a bench to lift a weight in their entire lives. Like, I'm being so serious. Like, people, like, this doctor never lifted weights in their life, and you're like, yeah, man, let me listen to what the doctor has to say about weight training.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because like I did the carnivore diet there for a little bit, and that's really kind of what started off my whole health journey, if you will. And I did for about 2 years, but what I noticed that I would binge, right? So I'd be good for a week or two, and then man, I'd be face down and 2 pieces of cheesecake at the Cheesecake Factory, and then I'd feel like absolute dog shit the next couple of days. And I'm like, okay, well, you know what? This was like my body's way of saying, like, you're too fucking hungry, you're not eating enough, you need to change it up. So eventually I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna start tracking my food a little bit more diligently. And I started reintroducing carbohydrates. It's like, oh, actually, this is a lot more sustainable, enjoyable for me. And now I have like a lot more of an enjoyable lifestyle because, like, oh, if I do want that piece of cheesecake, okay, well, then I could fit my macros throughout the day around that. So, you know, hey, maybe I have to eat a little bit less in the morning, a little bit of a lighter lunch. But then when my wife and I go out later to have some drinks and have a nice dessert, then I can have pretty much whatever I want because I modified my day around it. So, and this is the one thing that I like really want to leave people with when it comes to nutrition stuff. It's just like, you don't have to reject everything. You don't have to have these hard rules around food because typically, like, there have been studies on this too, where like people's disinhibition response really gets cranked up when they start making hard rules around food. So like guidelines are good. You don't want gospel around it. So like, hey, avoid added sugars. Don't drink a lot of calories. If you do, try to limit it. Don't drink too much alcohol. Don't eat hyper palatable foods. And like, you'll probably be okay. Try to get as much fiber as possible. Lean proteins are good. Like, these are just some general rules. They're going to get you at least aimed in the right direction. But they're like, if you have some ice cream or something on a nice day, the world's not over, right? I heard somebody say once, that you're one meal off the plan and you're one meal back on. So you just want to make the right decision most of the time.
So we have one day, Saturday, whenever I order food, like I order pizza, because we got kids and everybody in the house. So I order pizza. That's the one day that we drink soda, right? Mm-hmm. Normally, my kid is like obsessed with water. Believe it or not, it's kind of weird how obsessed he is with water. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, we have to keep we have a filter and we have to keep a whole different bottle of water in the refrigerator ready for him, because he'll get home and just zoop, 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 zoop. I'm like, damn, bro, like, what the hell? So, which is cool. But we have one day of the week where he drinks soda, and nobody's like, it's not like going to kill me, because usually we do drink mostly water throughout the week. And I explain to people, like, yeah, man, like, it is important to kind of like remind your body, like, yeah, there are other things that exist. I know, like, I usually eat healthy for the most part, but there are other things, because you don't want your body to go into shock the moment that you do eat something that's unhealthy and your body has not had the training to deal with it. So it's everything in moderation, man. That's why you like you said, guidelines, not gospel. And it's also easier to maintain that than it is to try to follow the gospel. We like the Bible always says, we're all sinners. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're gonna sin. It's gonna happen. And if sometimes people, when they backtrack a little bit, or they eat something unhealthy, they're like, oh, gotta give it up, because I failed. Just gonna keep going. Like, no, just it's cool. Like, bro, it's cool that you had your cheesecake. Just go back to the gym tomorrow. Make up for it.
Yeah.
Like, it's cool. Like, the world didn't come to an end. Really quick, man, before we get up out of here. If you're okay, we're talking about it. Just became a new dad.
Yeah.
Just had your daughter, bro. How does it feel? On my show, I'm always talking about dad life. I know this is like a new thing for you, and then you're like, you realize, like, wow, man, this is actually it's not easy, but being a dad actually is a little bit easier than what some people think it is. It isn't like the end of the world, like what a lot of people portray it to be.
Yeah, I'm loving every second of it. I did tear up a little bit when I saw my daughter for the first time. It was absolutely nuts. Because my wife had a C-section. I remember hearing my daughter take her first breath. I'm like, whoa. Like, it feels like almost yesterday that my wife was literally standing in this room right beside me, and like, normally she doesn't come bother me when I'm in here, not like in a bad way. It's just like, she knows either I'm working, I'm playing a game, I'm playing guitar, or something like that. And she's standing there. I'm like, why is she standing there like that?
You're
And
like,
she hands a test over. Yeah, she hands a test over to me and says, "Oh yeah, I took like 8 of these, but yeah, they all pop positive." Like, oh, that's awesome then. Yeah. So, yeah, it was back in December. She says that, and I'm like, all right, well, this is really, really cool. So, yeah, she's 12 days old as of today, and yeah, she cries, she shits, she pisses. We have to change some diapers. She gets upset, but it's such an adventure because every day it seems like she's just getting something, like, moving forward. And to me, this is just so crazy to watch. Just like, when she first came out of the womb, she's small, she had, hair and stuff, and just look completely different. And now, like, her eyes are getting bigger. She's making more eye contact. She's starting to see stuff more. And I try to make eye contact with her. My wife breastfeeds her, so she gets a good skin to skin contact as well. It's a hell of an adventure, man. And the hospital trip, when we're staying there for 3 days, didn't sleep a lot, but like, I'm realizing now as time goes on that, like, oh, all these stressful moments, wouldn't trade them for anything. Would not trade a single bit of it for anything. And to see kind of like both, sides of my family, my wife's side of the family, my side of the family, all kind of come together and be like, oh, no, we all want the best for this. It's just really, really enheartening for me, because I think about where, like, I came from with my family, and like, it wasn't awful. Definitely could have been worse, but and definitely could have been better. But like, I'm kind of looking at this now. I'm like, oh, she's gonna have a much better life than I could have ever dreamed of. So like, now my wife and I get to set the Matovcik last name a little bit more straight, and then hopefully, if she decides to have kids, then she can continue to kind of set us forward in that way. So I couldn't be happier. And then seeing the way my wife kind of interacts, seeing the way,
that's a beautiful thing, is that the families even come together and get closer. It's because it doesn't happen every time, right? I feel like you as a person, and your wife as a person, like, y'all have to be something special to your family, even if they're not the best at showing it with you guys. Like, unfortunately, the way it works is like the person that they show it the least to, because I've had my issues with my mom and my dad. Like, a lot of times the person that they express how much they love them the least to, that's actually like the most important cog in the machine of the family. And they usually think that you're good. Like, I don't really need to be affectionate or be on top of you or show you how much. But then, like, when the baby comes, and like, because that's kind of what happened with my baby. Like, out of nowhere, everybody was really involved. I don't know. I'm like, what? My mom came to Brazil. Like, I really can't express how strange that is. I never thought my mom would visit Brazil, because my mom she likes traveling, but like, if she's going to travel somewhere, it's either to the islands or to a place that speaks Spanish, because at least she can understand that. Brazil is like strange, and it's a long flight, and those are two things she hates. And she was like, yeah, I'm going to come. I'm like, for real? Are you serious? Because the parents be saying stuff sometimes. She's like, yeah, no, I'm coming. And she showed up, and she stayed for like 2 or 3 weeks. I'm like, what?
You feel all right?
You okay? Like, yeah, like, Mom, you're good. Like, and she was talking about, And all of a sudden, she starts talking about all these things that he does, like I used to do that I never know I knew. Because I'm like amazed at some of the stuff that he does, and she's like, "Well, yeah, you used to do stuff like you used to do this exact same thing." Or I'm like, "You never said that." All of a sudden, they're telling you stories about your baby, like your baby life that you never knew existed because of this baby that's here now. Right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's my dad, same thing. I'm like, y'all, I'm learning about my life because of a baby that is not me, because everybody all of a sudden is like, wow, no, like we got to do it. We got to make sure this baby's taken care of and raised right. Because, they know to some degree, we could have did a better job, but we were young. We were trying to figure things out, but we want to get this right. We want to help you get this right. And that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I remember my dad saying all the time, and my brother and I were talking about this about a week or so ago, and he looked at it a lot worse than I did. But I remember my dad saying to me, because he has 5 kids, I'm the middle child, and I remember him saying for 33 years, because that's about like the entire time that from his youngest kid to his oldest kid would take for them to all be 18. I don't know if I said that right, but basically,
Wow.
like he's like, for 33 years, I will have got to do nothing that I wanted to do, and like I was probably 12 to 15 at the time. Kind of a fucked up thing to say, but like looking back at it, I always kind of kept that in the back of my mind, because I'm like, okay, if I'm going to have a kid, then I have to realize that like I can't just go do whatever I want, however I want, and whenever I want, because now I have something else that needs me at all times. So my brother's like, oh, that was so fucked up. He shouldn't have said that. And he kept saying, oh, don't have kids, don't get married. And of course, I kind of rejected his premise on that, because my wife and I have been married now for 2.5 years. But I when he came into the hospital to see his granddaughter, I could tell it was just like a changed man. And now he's like, oh, your younger siblings have to go meet her. Why don't you take her here? Oh, I'm so excited to see your granddaughter.
Yeah,
hey,
right. It's like, everybody needs to start planning their life around you now and your baby. Like same thing happened with my mom. Like when you come to the U.S., let me know, because I'm gonna let your brother and your sister and your dad, and like, yeah, they're gonna go visit you where you're at. I'm like, what? Because that's never been the case. I always got to go to where everybody else is at. Literally, no matter where they're in the country, it's just, we're going to do a party, and I get a day or so notice. In New York or California, you're going to be there, right? I guess. Like, what? Like, well, yeah, you can go, right? No, why didn't y'all tell me before? And is everybody else going? Well, yeah, they're already here. And I told them like a couple months ago. But then after the baby was born, it was, well, no, I gotta do whatever we can to make your life more convenient, because they're kind of hyper aware. Like, yeah, no, there's a baby now, so we know everything is extra whenever you got a baby. And in my case, about to be 3 kids, everything becomes extra. And so my mom being aware of that, she's like, yeah, no, let me know and we can plan around your schedule and things like that. And it's dope, man. It's a really interesting experience, because like obviously there's the experience of you being a father, like that in and of itself is just amazing. But then like you see all of a sudden, like, are you just married to somebody, or do you have a partner? Right? That's you find that out real quick, right? Because like you said, your life changes, and now all of a sudden you're like you got to work like a well-oiled machine to some degree to make that work, and you got to know what ways that like I don't want to say inadequate, but like there are things that my wife does better than me, like and handles better than me. There are things that I handle better than her, like especially on the communication front. There's a conversation that you have to have about the way that you're interacting with that, or one of the other persons are interacting with the baby. And you have to be open to hearing that, because you could be perceiving something as a father that she isn't perceiving as a mother. Like that's something that has happened to her. Like, hey, you got to talk to Levy more. And she's like, what? What do you mean? Why? I was like, well, because you're his mom, he loves you. And she's like, well, no, I always like give him hugs and stuff like that. No, you need to actually talk to him though. She's like, I talk to him. Like, no, like you say stuff to him and you check in on him, but like you got to have conversations, like, because he has a lot to say, and I know because he's saying them to me. You know what I'm saying? He's talking to me all the time. And
there needs to be a mutual interaction there.
Exactly. And she was like, oh, you think so? I'm like, yeah. In my mind, I'm thinking like, you didn't think about that? And she's like, I'm like, you're his mom. Like, he loves you to death. Like, what do you mean? Well, of course he wants you to talk, but I also remember like, I like talking to my mom, even though my mom wasn't the best communicator when I was young. But when we did talk, it was awesome. And my grandma is a huge communicator. She always talked to me and I loved it. And I'm like, yeah, he loves you. Like, yeah, I'm talking to him, but like, it's dad talk. Like, is different when you're talking to your mom than when
Right.
you're with your dad. My conversations with my dad are very different. And she was like, oh, wow, I did not think about that. I was like, well, that's what I'm here for. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
we're a team. And then you got the
Yeah.
auxiliaries, like you said. Like, then you get to see how everyone else kind of interacts and engages because of your new family dynamic. And then you start to realize, like, man, one human, like every human is like its own universe, right? And it's like this one human has such a huge impact on everyone else's universe, and you brought them into the world. And this is not what you were expecting when they got there, right? You're like, I thought I was just gonna be a dad, and you know, but now it's like everything is changing, and now you're trying to like understand, like, what the hell is going on? Why is everybody acting so different? It's just a baby, but no, it's an experience. It is a journey for real. Congratulations, dog.
Thank you. Yeah. And it's been, like I said, absolutely phenomenal to kind of watch it all unfold. And, I see a whole new side of my wife, and it's not like I didn't think she was capable. It was just kind of amazing to me to see how she just instantly snapped into it. And it makes me love her that much more and admire her that much more, because I'm like, oh yeah, she's just like, it's literally like she was born to be a mom when I watch her
Superhero,
act.
bro.
Yeah.
Superhero.
She dealt with this before, but she's like, oh yeah, I was terrified to deal with a toddler. But then, yeah, like I'm watching her when she's changing a diaper, and it's just like, all right, we're good,
bro. Right? Things I'm like, okay, don't want to mess this up. All right. And she's like, boop, 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 bop, bop, bop. Oh shit, like you already done? Like, yeah, she'll give him a bath. Like the stuff that she does with him, like obviously when I'm playing with him, I do stuff that she's like, wow, I don't know how you're dealing with that, but okay. But like with her, like the things that she needs to make, like cook dinner, make his milk, but she's like on a mental schedule of when he needs to eat already. Like she knows, like if it's I'm hungry cry, and then, or if I'm like you said, I just want attention cry, or there's a cry that he does when he wants me to. There is a strict schedule of around 7:15 to 7:30, where there's a very specific cry where it's, Dad, you need to pick me up and walk around so I can be tired so I can go to sleep, because I'm already tired, but I'm not going to go to sleep until you pick me up and walk around with me, basically. And it's a very specific cry. And like, if I'm like upstairs or something like that, and he starts doing this little thing, he goes, he literally does that. And she's like, babe, I'm like, what's up? Logicis. I'm like, what time is it? And she's like, 7:30. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm coming. Because I already know what time it is. But it's funny. It's funny how they just catch on, bro. They catch on to everything so quick, bro. Moms are superstars. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it, bro. It's really impressive. Tell I put your YouTube link in the description, but tell everybody where they can find you at.
Yeah, of course, you can find me Kyle Matovcik on Twitter. Last name is spelled Matovcik. It's pretty tricky. So, the In Liberty and Health podcast. I also do a Monday night show called 5 till Midnight with a couple other guys where we just kind of shoot the shit. I'll be doing the one chip challenge tomorrow. So feel free to come watch me get my ass whooped by a very spicy chip. And you can find my band, A Common Crown, at acommoncrown.com. We have about 5 new songs almost ready to go. Our singer just has to lay vocals on it. In fact, I think they were just messaging me now. So, new music coming out soon. If you're into heavy metal or rock, we got the stuff for you. So yeah, In Liberty and Health, Kyle Matovcik on Twitter, Facebook, all that good stuff. A Common Crown and 5 till Midnight. And I do have a Substack as well. I completely forgot about that. No politics, just about music. The Great Megalodon on Substack. If that's within your purview, feel free to check me out in all those places. And Niko, thank you so much, brother.
No problem, man. Kyle the Renaissance, man. Yeah, go check out his music. Go check out his Substack, his Twitter, all that good stuff. And of course, definitely make sure you subscribe to his YouTube channel. You know, if you can become a premium, I don't know if you can become, can you accept premium subscribers? Yeah, there you go, man. Got a baby to support, y'all. Help him out, man. Help him out so we can do what he loves full time, bro. Like, for real. Like it's dope to be able to do what you love full time, because Kyle does great work. And if y'all can help him support his family and raise his daughter and have more time with that baby girl, hey, look, that's a blessing in of itself. So y'all go make sure to subscribe to him, support him. Thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of For the People podcast. And of course, I am your humble host, Niko House. Don't forget to like this video, share this video, subscribe, and always remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.